Good afternoon, everyone. It's Hanifa Menon from hearthealthbrainhealth.com, encouraging healthy grieving and mindful actions. Today, I thought, literally, that I would name this video, Your Thoughts Create Your Matter. And which is so interesting, right? Because don't we ask people sometimes, what's the matter? And it's so interesting because these two are actually very closely related. So I thought I'd start with one quotation, which I thought was quite interesting to think about, to contemplate. So this quotation is by Aditi Shankaradas, and this quotation says, when looking at the brain, it is important to go beyond its structure to its function. This is because often in cognitive disorders, the structure of the brain is intact, but its function is compromised. Did you get all of that? So I'll read it one more time. When looking at the brain, it is important to go beyond its structure to its function. This is because often in cognitive disorders, the structure of the brain is intact, but its function is compromised. Now remember, when we're looking at the structure of the brain, and you know that neuroscientists do this all the time, this is the work, right? Is trying to figure out the structure of, okay, what's happening in this particular part of the brain. And we're not really looking at what's happening, period, right? So this is the human experience. This is what's happening with this person. We might say, why is that happening according to the structure of the brain? And when we're thinking about cognitive disorders, I'm bringing this to attention because right now there's a lot of cognitive disorders that are being diagnosed and treated regularly in society. And sometimes we need to change our perspective of what we're looking at or how we're looking. And this is what I would love for us all to do. So, remembering that sometimes when someone says that they've got anxiety or they've got depression or they've got a mood disorder of another sort or a personality disorder, anything, maybe they won't say it. Maybe other people will start pointing fingers and saying that person has this. And we do know that these experiences are not really understood from the human experience. It's more about what's happening in lab work, what's changing in blood work, what's changing in the functional MRIs of the brain. So, those sorts of ideas. So, we're not really looking at the brain and what it's creating together in a person. So, then I came across this quotation by Jiddu Krishnamurti, and this says, thought is matter as much as the floor, the wall, the telephone are matter. Thought is matter as much as the floor, the wall, the telephone are matter. So, what does this mean? So, you know, many times that I've made videos that I talk about our thoughts matter, right? So when we look at someone and we have a judgment coming from us, you know, even the judgment of that person's not right starts shaping that person's life experience. And this is why it becomes so important for us to be mindfully aware of what we're thinking at all times. Like sometimes I could be thinking something about myself that's shaping my experience, and I could think something about someone else that shapes their experience. Then someone could tell me that they're anxious, and I could say, oh, now they're anxious. So that is, they've told me, they're saying it to themselves. Now I'm also agreeing with it and saying more, and then saying maybe you should get medication for it, or that sort of idea. Anything, maybe you should take a vacation, whichever. We don't often think about maybe we need to go inside to understand this for this experience of this cognitive disorder. And I'm going to say that all of us in society are somewhat disordered because of our past life experiences. Our past life experiences have created a memory in our minds, and those memories are distorted from our perspective, right? This was right, this wasn't right. This felt not good, this was not right for me, but we never really looked inside as to why. Why is it? What is it that doesn't feel right? When we look at thought as matter, we can understand that what we're thinking, if we're aware of what we're thinking, actually shapes and influences our lives, both on what happens inside us and what happens outside of us. It's a very powerful tool, and people are not aware most of the time of how powerful this is. So I came across these ideas of thought is matter, thought is fragmentary, and it's divisive. It's divisive. So when we think about thought, it's fragmented, right? So it's fragmented. Like 1 minute I think this, 1 minute I think this, right? So that's that fragmented, but it's also dividing, right? So it's again, I can be aware of right now I'm really happy, and then sometimes I'm not so happy, and sometimes I'm eager, and sometimes I'm lazy, and all of those things, all fragments, and yet it's all the thought process, right? And whatever I think most of will become the strongest energy. At the same time, thought as matter itself, it has a certain action that's happening in our brains. This thought tries to break things down into bite-sized pieces to try to understand, because it's less easy to think of like the whole, right? Wow, this is all of the things that are happening in my mind. That's like, I can be happy. I can think of all of these things at the same time and be content and peaceful. And that's just, being aware of my thought process. This divisiveness, imagine if I'm dividing myself, that, oh, I keep thinking about this and I shouldn't think about it. And then I'm not understanding this is thought. This is just understanding thought. This is just, it's okay. Now I start that way myself and start saying, okay, I'm not happy. I want to be happy. I'm not rich and I want to be rich, right? And it doesn't matter which thought we think of. If I'm not accepting where I am right now, there's a division in my thought. So I want to get from where I am to where I want to be. This is division of our thinking. We also do the same sorts of thought processes when we look at others. It's like they're like this, but they'd be better if they're like this. Or I like this aspect about them, but this aspect I don't like about them. And so we divide that person. And this is what thought likes to do. It likes to divide because it's bite-sized pieces. But as we divide into bigger and bigger groups. We start dividing first within ourselves. This is what I do accept or don't accept about myself. I want to be here, but I'm not quite there. And then we start doing it with people around us. So it could be family, it could be friends, it could be society, it could be countries. This is all of our judgments and our thoughts' ability to divide things. Now, remember, I love thinking of unity, and that really is the space that we all begin. Yet, when thought takes over, it starts dividing and fragmenting. This is just understanding the nature of thought. And unless you're sitting and contemplating and reflecting, meditating without thought, remember, there's no thinking in meditation. And even that thinking of, oh, I'm thinking a thought and I shouldn't be thinking is a fragmentation, right? And good to be able to catch ourselves if we do that, because it's very common in meditation. But it's just to allow things to just happen, to just play out. And this is us, I'm going to say from a spiritual level, taking control of our thoughts, which actually is allowing them to just be, right? This control is, it's illusionary too, right? Because it's literally the thought will want to control. This is how I act. This is what I do. It's just its natural course. And the soul will be, this just is. And if we're working from the soul space, there's that pure acceptance of what is. And that's a space that we'll see in society we've really pulled out of. And we won't even say it today. I believe that this has been part of our direction for quite a bit of time, because so much more is based on thought and learning and that feeling of knowledge. And when we've got knowledge, we feel like I know. And then if I know better than you know, and all of that comparison starts growing, which further fragments and divides society, and certainly further fragments and divides ourselves. So today I wanted to make sure that you spend 5 minutes to see what things can you think of from a space of unity or just allowing to be. Imagine if you see a beautiful part of nature. You might see the trees changing in Ontario right now if you're in Ontario, and they're beautiful changes of colors. And not once have I ever stopped and said, well, this one's too green, this one's too red, right? I just enjoy it for what it is. And this is the art of living life with things as is. So Albert Einstein had also touched on this idea. And, the next few videos, I'm going to be continuing this idea of how we think and understanding the thought and how it's creating the matter. And remember that anything that we think enough, right, becomes our lived experience. Now, if I believe in accepting all, that becomes my lived experience. I feel accepted and I am accepting. But if I feel judgmental, I will feel judged. and I will judge others. So remember that where we're starting from is exactly what goes back and forth. And I'd love for us to think of unity and oneness and acceptance as things to think about today, because our thoughts do create our experience. So Albert Einstein is the quotation that I'm going to finish on today. This quotation says, concerning matter, we have been all wrong. What we have called matter is energy, whose vibration has been so lowered as to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter. And this is the thing, right? The no matter, we know that we've got physical bodies. We know that there's things in our environment, in our world that are matter. And there's, of course, things that are not man made, and there are things that are man made. And man made comes a lot from thought process. If I can do this in this way, then this will be the result. And that can be really useful for our basic day to day learning, right? It can be really useful if I know how to do my job. I know how to speak to a friend. I know how to speak to family. I know how to interact in this situation. That's learning information that is usual. That does matter, right? But it's the quality of it that matters, right? It's in this idea of this energy, that there's no matter. Remember that nothing mattered while it was energy, while we were just aware that, oh, this is really nice. It just is. This is such a good observation that I can have, that this person is this way. That's all. And I can observe myself through that too, right? So I can see that, isn't it nice to know that this is just how I think? This is me right now. This might not be me tomorrow, right? So this recognition for ourselves is enjoying this moment as is and just accepting it as is. And you are today in this moment exactly where you need to be. I hope you accept that and love it and understand it and appreciate it, and certainly have a direction for which direction you're moving in. If it's coming from a space of acceptance and understanding, there will be a sense of knowing too that allows you to move forward easily and efficiently and joyfully. And that's what I wish for all of us. I wish you a fantastic day ahead, and I hope you remember, transform your mind and transform your life. Have a great day, everyone.